All right, everybody, welcome back to the ATB NFL Live Show post-draft edition. We didn't do any draft
Woo!
stuff, Zach. I promised you we wouldn't really do any draft stuff. The
Hey,
draft has happened now,
we did
so
a
you can
light
react to it.
we did a nice
I know,
light mock draft. It
a
was
little bit.
perfect.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like I said in the group chat, we're past. The picks have happened. There's no
Yes.
speculation at this
Yeah,
point.
now you
We
can
can just
talk
digest
about
it.
it.
There
Yeah,
are tangible things to
this is the
discuss.
easy part. We talk about how they fit in with the teams now, not
Right.
who's going to go to what team and how they would fit in. I don't have to worry about that part.
Exactly. So now, yeah, we should be able to do that. We're going to focus mostly on that today, but anything else that comes up, we can talk about. But I know our three teams had, like in my case, it was kind of eerie how my team drafted. We'll get to that. Tony, I know you guys did some stuff that some people criticized, but I thought overall came out pretty well, honestly. And Zach will talk about the Dolphins as well with their limited picks. I think they did overall a pretty okay job. We'll kind of get into that a little bit. But again, thank you guys for joining me. We have a full show, which is nice. Haven't been able to do that for a little while, but try to get this back going as we get closer to the season. Yeah, work. Yeah, exactly. But so I want to start here. We're talking about our team's draft just because at the end of the day, we're an NFL show, but we have our allegiances. We can talk about them. And I think all of them are worth talking about as well for different reasons.
A record-breaking draft with the first 14, with the first.
Oh, yeah, with the first 12 picks.
Yes. Yeah.
12 or was it 14?
14.
Oh, you're talking about the offensive player run. I was talking about the six quarterbacks.
I mean, it's both.
12.
Yes.
Six quarterbacks. Yeah, that's
six quarterbacks in the top 12 in the first 14 picks were offensive players. Both have never happened before.
Offense heavy early makes sense considering everything. But yeah, it's definitely pretty huge on offense there. But yeah, let's talk about. I want to start with the Bills draft because there's some people that have kind of some negative opinions about it, mostly because like the trade down to let the Chiefs come up. I don't really care about that, Tony, personally, because I don't think you guys are going to take him anyway. And if you can get some assets, and even if it's a player that maybe you don't want them to have, they're probably going to get that player regardless somehow. Take some assets. I don't have a problem with that. But ultimately, you guys trade down twice, actually, entirely out of the first round and get Keon Coleman at 33. Personally, on my board, and we'll kind of reference my board from time to time, he was number 36 on my board. So right around value for me. He's an interesting receiver. I think that the fit is what I'm most curious about in terms of how they want to use him. There's a lot of slot type guys on your offense right now, and I feel like he is a big slot, ideally for me at least. So I'm curious, how they deploy all these guys. But what did you think about that pick in particular?
Yeah, so that pick in particular, so I was preaching before the draft. The thing that I wanted was I knew that we needed receiver help, obviously.
Yes.
But I felt that there was a very distinct tier of 3 elite receivers, and I didn't want the team to sacrifice whatever it was going to take to get up there.
I agree.
I knew I wanted to be picking in tier 2. If you want to say that Brian Thomas deserved his own tier in the middle, sure, yeah. And if he had fallen to us, I would have loved it. And it sounds like we may have made some phone calls to try to get up above Jacksonville.
Right.
But no, not too sad about that. I don't like trading up. My ideal strategy was, since I saw the tier 2, maybe call it tier 3 if we're giving Brian Thomas his thing, but I saw there were 10 receivers in that grouping that I would happily draft. Yeah. Therefore, I did not want to draft the top of that tier. We didn't have a third round pick. We had a lot of picks, but we didn't have a third round pick. My goal was trade back and just swing the bat a couple of times in that second tier. Now, we only swung the bat once, but they did exactly what I wanted in terms of not drafting the top of that tier. And with Keon Coleman, was he my ideal pick at 33, observing the board the way it was? No, I actually probably would have said Cooper DeJean or Johnny Newton. But when it comes to receiver, between him and Adonai Mitchell, it was kind of a toss-up on who I'd want there. Ladd McConkey, I just got scared of injury stuff. But
yeah, I get that.
So Keon Coleman specifically, I think they are going to trot him out at X to start, but
I think he'll play there, yeah.
This Joe Brady offense, and last year we saw a glimpse of it. This year we're going to see the true Joe Brady offense. It is very versatile in terms of just swapping players into spots. When they were in Carolina, they were moving Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel around to different spots. They were getting the running backs involved in the pass game. They were getting the tight ends involved. That's what it's going to kind of be. It's going to guys are just going to line up differently depending on the play. What I love that he gives us is he gives us size. He has real size and explosiveness. Straight line speed, sure, yeah, not great, but also you saw at the combine when he's running the drills, he was actually the fastest of all of them. So what I think he brings, a new flavor of receiver to just pepper into the room. I think he's got excellent hands. I think he's got excellent explosion. He's only 20 years old, and he seems very dedicated to the craft in terms of like learning how to improve. Apparently, he like texted Andre Reed immediately when he got drafted, asking like, "Hey, how do I make it in Buffalo? I'm a sponge. Give me everything you got." So like, if he continues that mindset, I think his athletic profile and youth and all like skill set he's already shown, like he does have a pretty high ceiling. But I also think his floor is like a fringe wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. And those are the kind of guys I want to fill the room with. So, like, overall, I like his fit. I like his upside. I think that the separation concerns, like, would I like him to separate more? Yes. But when he has that catch radius, when he's able to kind of, like, you know, get that subtle push off, I don't think Jordan Travis was doing him any favors. Peyton Thorne, I know for a fact, wasn't doing him any favors when he was on the Michigan State team. Yeah. But you just see flashes of just like excellent Big X ability. So overall, no complaints from me. Is he? Yeah. Do I expect him to fill the Diggs role? No, but nobody was ever going to do that. So people expecting that are going to be disappointed. I'm expecting fringe wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and I think I'm going to be satisfied with the result.
Yeah, and I will say with him, the thing that I struggled with is like as far as ranking him is, I put a premium on the ability to separate, right? Like that's kind of a big thing. Yeah. However, you guys have a lot of separators on the roster, so I'm not that upset about them not taking another guy that I think profiles specifically as someone who's going to get open a lot, like where they can actually just throw in the ball and have him run. Like he's going to be a ball winner, right? Like that's what they kind of were looking for clearly. And I think he's going to be very good at that. I do wonder what the upside of him ultimately is, because a player like this, like can he be, for example, like the peak version of like, I know this name is going to make some people be like, oh, what are you talking about? But like Kenny Galladay, right? With the Lions, like when he was at his best, he was putting up over 1,000
at his
yards.
best.
Like when he was actually, you know, playing well within the offense and they were up getting the football. He was a ball winner. He wasn't separating even at that time. He was just going up, getting the football, being a big body receiver. I think Coleman is a little bit more talented than him as far as like, especially after the catch and with the ball in his hands. But at the catch point, I think that's kind of what you're hoping for with him is he can be that dominant down the field ball winner and be able to give Josh a good target to throw down the field, right? Maybe not throw him open, but throw to a spot where he can go up and just battle with the DB. So that's going to be interesting. I wonder, like I said, he's probably going to be the X a lot of the time for me, I imagine, just because no one else really profiles on the roster right now, at least guys that you can trust to go out there probably early. But they have guys who can handle all the other stuff, which is nice. So he doesn't have to be the short area separator. He doesn't have to get open in the middle of the field consistently. Like they have guys who can do that. So overall, again, it's right about value for me, so I don't have any problems with it. The Bishop pick, I will say, I like that because I kind of think he's Micah Hyde a little bit.
Oh, I was going to say the opposite. I think he's a Jordan Poyer clone. Granted,
he has like slot free safety like versatility. That's why I kind of lean Hyde, because that's where Hyde started, was as a slot, kind of with the Packers. So, but in general, like that type of do it all type of safety is where I kind of look at Bishop. So.
Yeah, and like full disclosure, like I was saying before the show, like I did not get the chance to watch Prospect to the level that I usually watch Prospect. So Cole Bishop, it was an after the draft watch for me, and I played the hits, right? Like I focused mostly on the highlights.
He's very fun.
His highlights are all like close to the line of scrimmage, detonating on guys. And so like I saw a lot of Jordan Poyer in that, but I do think like he's a perfect scheme fit. My whole thing was, we create good safeties. We don't need to draft good safeties. So, like, do I want to spend 60th overall on a safety? I personally probably wouldn't have done it, but I love the player. So, like,
I think the value was fine. I do. I think he was in that range to come off the board in that range. Zach, do you have any thoughts on Coleman? I don't know if you've seen much of him, because I didn't want to skip over you entirely.
On Coleman, well, the one thing I was going to say is I think the bigger part that people were making about the trades that Buffalo made was mostly about Kansas City. About Kansas City getting Xavier Worthy, which, I mean, yeah, he ran a fast 40. We will see what happens there. But like that's like, if that puts him at the top of tier 3, tier 2, whatever we want to call it, then that's what does it. But there's other like wide receivers for there to be selected, and there were far more like opportunities or positions that Buffalo could have gone. So for them to trade to round one, pick one. There's no difference in being at the end of round one than doing round two, pick one. Like there's literally zero difference there. So
yeah,
exactly. And
that was more
the idea of
anything
not
else.
being willing to trade with your rival because you should always try to improve your own team and improve your own situation. You don't have to worry about the boogeyman.
That.
Like,
shoot,
look at
Washington.
Worst case scenarios. Yeah, seriously, no. Like they traded up with the Eagles.
They traded in division.
But like one of my worst case scenarios for this draft was we stick and pick Xavier Worthy. I don't like the prospect, and like granted, him going to Kansas City will probably make them right. But
yeah,
this is also the team that drafted Sky Moore, like excitedly, and like. So everybody being upset about that, there are Bills fans who have admitted they said that they would be happier if the Bills took Coleman at 28 and Worthy fell to the Chiefs at 32, just because they didn't want to be the team to give Worthy.
It's all optics.
That is the dumbest shit I have ever heard.
Because all that means is that y'all finessed a couple picks out of Kansas City for them to move up a couple picks so they could get Worthy. Like, that's just dumb.
We got their third round pick and we drafted a player we probably were going to draft anyways. Like that is good process.
It is, it is. So I don't have any problem. I think it is just an optics.
I said before the show that I said before the show that Buffalo and Carolina probably got two of the most like vibes like personality picks in wide receivers and Keon Coleman and Xavier Legette. Both of their introductory press conferences are phenomenal. I absolutely and the best part about Keon Coleman's is his introductory press conference starts like a good 10 minutes before the actual press conference begins. So that makes it even better. They're
easy to root for.
They're awesome. They're awesome. So, but yeah, outside of that, I don't really know much about the rest of the people that were does this mean like England like
he's
it's a round 7 pick. It's 221. So in the NFL this year, every single team has to have an international pathway player on the roster. So like the Lions, they traded a future third to go up and get a guy in the fourth round,
that guy, though,
which is weird. But the Bills chose to spend pick 221 on Travis Clayton, a tackle out of England. It gives you a 17th practice squad spot. He's just going to sit there and probably try to figure it out. Yeah, we'll see.
What country did they draft this guy from? The British Columbia. Yo, what the heck?
Oh yeah, are you looking at
Lions?
Manu?
Yeah, DC.
Yeah,
DC tackle.
6'7", 350, runs like a 4.96. Like, let's see.
That's a good shot. Good shot.
That was the thing about when the Dolphins picked Patrick Paul, because ironically when my girlfriend and I started dating, we watched the draft. It was like a month after we started dating, and she was like, "What is this? I don't know what this is." I'm like, "Oh, this is the NFL draft."
That's
like I just watched the first and second round and watched my picks, and then I turn it off.
Zach is not a degenerate, so good for him. Good for him.
So I had it on this year. She's like, "Oh, it's time for the draft again." I'm like, "Yeah, the Dolphins and Steelers are picking right after each other again. We can watch for both of us." And in the second round, when they picked Patrick Paul, she was like, "Oh my God, that man is huge! Holy crap!"
He's gigantic. Yeah, he's a gigantic person.
Yeah, but I mean, 6'8", 350. Good God,
it's pretty good size for a tackle.
So you're saying everybody has one from?
Well, they're supposed.
The majority of the teams are going to sign them as UDFAs, but
but you could also draft them.
Yeah, if they like really like one of them, they can just say we're.
I wanted to see the one on Dallas's roster that was part of them going all in. So
right. No,
I will say they had a good draft. We can get into that later.
I
was actually impressed with what they did.
But just to touch on some of the other guys for you, Tony, before we move on we'll talk about the Dolphins next. I like the Dwayne Carter pick. 2022 definitely is where, if you want to look up like what he could be, that's where he was more of the player
rotational 3-tech.
Yeah, I think he can be a good pass rusher. Ray Davis was a really good running back out of Kentucky. I think he's going to be a really nice kind of complement to what you guys already have going on there. Mm-hmm. I think Van Pranger is going to start for you at center. He's going to start at center sooner rather than later. Personally, I was surprised he made it this far. I really thought he was going to be a third, fourth round pick. The linebacker of Washington, I'm not even going to try to say his name. just
I
know
looked up
that
the pronunciation when we drafted him just because I was like, I'm eventually going to say this kid's name. Didn't even try it.
No, it didn't. Didn't help, right? But he actually really good coverage player, specifically like such a like Bills linebacker pick, like 230s covers, all that stuff.
Yeah,
like
they did not want
field.
AJ Klein out there covering
No.
Travis Kelce in the divisional round again.
No,
they
so
built the depth.
He's like, if he stays healthy, I think he would have a role eventually if you need him to. Solomon's a fun edge rusher, not your type normally, which I'm glad about because you guys need less 270-pound edge rushers and some more juice. So I appreciate that. And then again, Grable didn't get to. Daquan Hardy, personal favorite of mine, Penn State. You guys know I covered Penn State. I think if Teron Johnson had an injury, this dude could play if he had to. So
he's making the roster. He's going to be the primary slot backup, and he is probably also going to return punts and kicks.
I think so too. He's a good punt. He's a good punt returner. So yeah, that'll be fun for you. And then obviously we talked about Clayton. He's the international pathway player. So overall, I did think you guys did really well. Just saying that.
Yeah, I thought they got on base. I don't think there are any like game-changing, like this is going to change the trajectory of the franchise forever players. But I think they got on base with pretty much every pick.
This is going to allow them. Yeah, this is going to allow them to maintain their level of play. I think pretty well. Like obviously there might be some hiccups early on with Coleman and stuff, but I think that both sides of the ball should be pretty well off based on this draft. So, wanted to talk about the Dolphins next year, Zach. So you guys. I have a couple, I wouldn't say issues necessarily, but more so like things I would have maybe done a little bit differently. That doesn't mean your picks weren't good, but more so, again, just like would I have done it a little bit differently, probably. Let me pull up the draft again just so I don't miss the later round picks. So you go Chop Robinson with 21. This is certainly one of those things for me where like I'm hoping that I'm just wrong about him a little bit in the sense that I still had him ranked 32 on my board as a fringe first rounder. It's just that his like amount of outcomes are so vast for me that taking him in the first round ahead of some players that I thought could be, bigger impacts for me. And granted, maybe this does mean that the edges are not going to be there week one, and maybe there's going to be some long-term things that maybe that's what that means. Maybe he's just going to be the Bryce Huff of this defense, where he's kind of just the third down specialist, which is what I kind of view him as most likely in the NFL. Either way, it's a little rich at 21 for me with guys like Barton on the board and some other guys that could have helped in the interior. But I think if he works out, he has more potential than just about anybody on defense, especially in the class with that first step. So that one's interesting. I'm curious kind of how you felt about when they went him in the first round.
I was fine with it. I was possibly thinking that they were going to go wide receiver, honestly. A little early, I know, but there was still Brian Thomas on the board.
Yeah, he was on the board. So
and I kind of, and there was a lot of talk about Xavier Worthy as well going.
Which
Miami.
Wow, big surprise there.
Doesn't make it better in January, but it'd be fun.
Yeah, but
it'd be really fun. Yeah.
But so, I mean, I'm not disappointed. Like you said, there are the questions with the injuries, especially. And you also did lose Van Ginkel. You did lose some pieces.
They still needed edge help for sure.
Yeah.
This early makes me wonder if there's some concerns there for them.
Yeah. Like I said, I think the biggest thing about this class really is how you view Patrick Paul. And that's like, and he's raw. I like the size. I do kind of think that there could be some possible, depending on where you put him, like, man, Tua, you're going to have to crane that neck. You are going to have to be on your tippy toes to see over him. But, I do, like I said, pre-show, I do believe the idea is to kind of let him not start week one and sit behind Terran Armstead and him be the replacement when Armstead eventually does go down with some injury, which we all know is hopefully doesn't happen. We all hope for the best, but has happened pretty much every single year for the past.
Kind of expect it.
Yeah. I mean, the man is in his 40s, 50s, not 50s. He's in his about to hit 40, right?
Be hilarious. He's in his 50s. He's definitely in his beyond 35.
Beyond 35, yeah. He's like in his late 30s. I meant late 30s, 40s. But like he's getting up there, and especially for being a tackle, it's not like he's not playing, it's not like he's a kicker or like playing a not demanding position. Like we're talking about offensive line. Jalen Wright's fun, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah,
but
he was totally like hey, you know what? Why not?
This was Chris Greer looking at Mike McDaniel and say, "Who do you want? Who can this? Which one's your pick, man?" And they got to have his little reaction on camera. And I also, as we also said beforehand about Patrick Paul, they didn't have a 3rd round pick. So even if you viewed him as a 3rd round selection, if Miami fell in love with Patrick Paul, it was either take him at 23rd in the 2nd round or don't take him, because he was like,
no, yeah, you're right.
By the time the 4th round pick came around. The rest of them, I don't really necessarily know much about.
Where the draft gets good for me.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on the later round guys if you want to hear them, Zach. But go ahead.
I've heard some fun things about the Washingtons.
Yes,
very fun things.
Yes.
Very upsetting things as a person who wanted both of those players on my team.
Now, I will admit I'm gonna be somewhat biased against one right from the get-go because of the college that he played for. But
in his defense, though, that was just 1 year. He was at Northwestern for 4. So
that's defendable. That's defendable. I can appreciate that.
He had to go somewhere where they'll throw him the football.
Oh, he broke the ACC single season record with 110 catches.
He's a straight dog.
He was productive as shit. Yeah,
I was upset that he got there.
Yeah. Okay.
Honestly, the OBJ signing was a great move for them. I don't think it was necessary after they drafted.
No, I don't think so either. But it does give them a veteran in the room. So
man, if I could really figure out which,
you're good. You're good. Right there.
We always struggle with that so much.
Yeah, I'm just so
hard.
Yeah, it's like I figured it out just because I know it's the opposite of it. But no, in general, Jalen Wright, I thought again fits the profile. I get that.
My only complaint is it's the exact opposite type of wide receiver, or running back that I have been asking for all offseason.
You need a compliment, and
there is no compliment for our.
I would have liked Audric Estime for them. That would have been fun.
Just
made sense.
At this point, I don't know who they go for, or if they even go for anybody, because you have so many people on the roster. There's so many running backs on this roster that is just like, all right, Salvon Ahmed, come on down. You're our bruiser. Great.
That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. With this draft, I feel kind of similar to the Bills one where I feel like they got on base. I do feel like there are a couple more extremes in the Dolphins draft where the range of outcomes is larger. So Chop Robinson wasn't personally for me, but I will not blame any team for taking him at 21.
Yes, it's hard to. Yeah.
I think, like I said with the Bills, there's no potential home runs. There's just a lot of getting on base. Chop Robinson is swinging for the fences. If he hits, I think you have a star pass rusher, truly game-changing pass ruscher.
Patrick Paul, you're not in the situation where you were when you took Deion Jordan. But I'm saying
to invoke.
Well, but I'm saying we're talking about pass rushers though, and this isn't pick 3, pick 5, whatever they took.
No, you didn't trade up.
Right.
This is pick 21.
If he is a DPR for his entire rookie contract, that's still worth it.
Especially if he's a really
first
good
step
one.
is deadly. Patrick Paul, I don't like the player. I hate the fit. I guess before getting into the other players, my overall thing is just they're very clearly doing the Kyle Shanahan 49ers thing of I understand you think our O-line is bad. I just need you to know that I don't care. They are very clearly putting their confidence in Mike McDaniel's ability to scheme around a bad O-line.
He has done incredible job.
It's not the way I want to live if Tua Tagovailoa is going to be my quarterback, though. I would have loved a better scheme fit offensive lineman, but he is a big swing. Jalen Wright, so the player does make sense for what the Dolphins like to be, right? He's fast. He doesn't have vision, though.
Yeah, he played in a fake offense in Tennessee. So.
The worst part of it all...
He's going to a fake offense in the NFL. What are you talking about?
That's fair. That's fair.
The worst part of it all, they traded a future third-round pick for him. So, Zach, you were saying they didn't have a third-round pick this year because the NFL took it away from them. Next year, they don't have a third-round pick because they spent it on Jalen Wright, a guy who is third on the running back depth chart.
Mostert will be gone soon. He can be.
They just gave Mostert an extension.
No, I would say if anything, he's going to be firmly third because Jeff Wilson is gone.
Yeah.
That's true.
But then you get to day, so like you get outside of round 4, and this is where I'm just in love with everything. Like,
Yeah, everything
I
they did
think
past that was
Mo Kamara is just he's not a high ceiling guy, but he's guaranteed to give you production
I think,
from the edge spot.
for example, I think he's better than Chop is right now on day one. I think he would be more productive than him.
I
like
do
in
think
a
there's
full
some
time
physical
role.
limitations that might hurt that, but I think he's like your Andrew Van Ginkel replacement. Like,
that's a good point. Yeah.
Malik Washington, I've said my piece. I think he's a stud. I'm so upset
awesome.
the Bills didn't draft him. That's
awesome.
the guy I wanted on the double dip.
That's fair.
Patrick McMorris couldn't tell you a thing about him, so like
didn't watch him for Cal.
Safety.
And then Taj Washington, I think, is just a really fun, undersized slot guy to add.
Could do some return stuff too as well. So
speaking of return stuff, because I knew you were going to say that. Have you guys heard about this absolutely insane crap about what's his name, about Justin Fields?
Justin Fields.
I don't even want to talk about it, Zach. It's.
I love the idea.
Jaylen Warren is on crack. That's all I have to say about it.
No, I love the idea. Because
I know you do.
They're like, what?
Think about the Kadarius Toney Travis Kelce play last year in the open field. Travis Kelce launches a bomb 15 yards behind him, and Kadarius Toney runs it in for a touchdown. Except he was offside. Justin Fields can start to run it and then
actually throw one
any spot on the field. They're gonna get so rugby with this thing, or like at least they could if they wanted to. That I think it's a cool idea.
It would be really fun. I'm not saying I'm not saying like I wouldn't be willing to hear him out. It's just the fact that I think Warren is talking crap just because he's one of those guys. He says some wild stuff sometimes. He just says wild stuff sometimes. It'd be funny for sure, but. No, I think Washington's a fun one because I think he could fill in as a receiver if you need him to for sure. But I do think he has return value too. He's one of those players I think is going to stick around for a long time as like a 4th, 5th receiver type.
Yeah.
So I think you guys have a ton of depth in the receiver room now, which is good. You've had injuries with Waddle. Hill has had some stuff at times too. Like it's good to have guys who can fit like kind of what they're going for with the speed. With Washington's more about the quickness and not so much the long speed, but still fits that. Like gets open quickly, runs after the catch, like all that stuff. So that's good. Again, you guys did do well overall. I just worry a little bit about the first 2 picks and where they end up. Kind of.
Yeah, landing, and I am disappointed. So like I said that I was disappointed they didn't address O-line more, especially the interior.
Yeah, me too.
Almost even more so than that. I'm disappointed that they didn't address D-tackle. I think that, well, Chop Robinson at 21 is probably a smarter value, especially after the NFL told us what they think of Johnny Newton. But at the time,
is upsetting.
I was thinking I would rather, like, for that team specifically, Johnny Newton makes more sense because I think he's kind of the Christian Wilkins clone, right? He's on the smaller side of 3-tech, but he is a stout run defender who has pass rush upside. Like wins in the
Benito
run first,
Jones,
and then, so yeah, I just wish they would have addressed those 2 really critical positions a bit more. Especially, you see the AFC East is kind of like the Bills specifically, but the other teams are going to be like, they're going to get their run game going. But you see where the Bills are going with their run game, trying to be a run-dominant power team.
Yep.
Not investing in the trenches is definitely a zag, and it'll be interesting to see how those things kind of work over time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. You mentioned Johnny Newton. Him falling, I think there was some injury stuff with him as far as I know.
There had to be. But Rukaroro going above him is
We'll talk about the Falcons
who
later,
drafted him?
I know. We will talk about the Falcons a little bit later.
Because I was going to say, you talk about Johnny Newton. Washington, I felt like had a fantastic draft.
We'll get to that.
Yeah,
too,
outside of the quarterback, which I accept, it could work out really, really well.
Right.
Yet they did everything else right, so there's nothing I can kill them there.
Those are some teams we'll talk about too. But I wanted to mention with Johnny Newton. For me personally, it was so upsetting because he was my number 1 defender in the draft on my board. He was my number 1 guy. Which
I don't think is bad. Like I think that is a fair place to have him. You are not alone.
To me, like him and Latu were neck and neck, and it's because they both have enough physical upside. And I thought they were 2 of the most polished pass rushers I've ever seen come out of the draft at their positions. Like at least since I've been watching them. Like the hand placement and the hand usage those 2 have as pass rushers is unbelievable for prospects. It's so stupid. It's honestly stupid, some of the stuff they did to guys at the college level. And I think they're going to be able to keep doing that at the next level too. So Washington, I thought, did good with that. But we'll get to kind of them in a little bit. So we'll talk about the Steelers. I kind of want to get your thoughts.
Kick off a segment of like our bet. Like now we're getting into the really good draft, and I think the Steelers are the right place to start with.
Okay, so yeah, so I will say like I want to let you guys talk about it a little bit, just because I've talked about it plenty, and I'll get to it though once you guys have a chance. But it did feel, and I said this like pre-show, but it felt like the Steelers were picking off of my board, which is both good and bad because it means I have to be right. But it also means if I am, then I'm going to feel really good about the fact that they went with what I would have probably done myself. But Tony, how did you feel overall about their draft, like kind of going down the board here, pick by pick?
Man, so like last year, we all acknowledge it. They did a really good job of just drafting the top of the board and filling needs with it. This, I think, is a step above that. They so like the SVP on our team is a Steelers fan, and he had me send him a mock draft beforehand. Like we were talking a lot about the draft, and I was like, I wish I could give you some shit, but like this is one of the better drafts I've ever seen. Not only did they grab great players, like really great players at positions of need, but they are very clearly reinvesting in the identity of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think they just nailed that every step of the way. So Troy Fautanu, granted, I didn't stack a board as much as I usually do. I think I would definitely have him before 20. Let me tell you that. Like when you want a run mauling tackle, left tackle who has the inside versatility, he's just a tone setter. He beats the other guy up. So you have him at left tackle, and now you have Broderick Jones at right tackle. Holy shit, we're cooking with gas. Zach Frazier should have been a first-round pick. Most Steelers prospect I have ever seen. He's from Morgantown to Pittsburgh is what, like 3 hours?
Something like that, yeah.
He will eat your face. Like, he will just straight eat your face. And now he's their starting center. Excellent pick. Roman Wilson, probably the most Steelers prospect in this draft outside of Adonai Mitchell, but they're very clearly investing in character here because not only is Roman Wilson probably slot dominant, but Deontay Johnson prospect in terms of he is a great separator. He's got awesome downfield speed, but he is such a high character guy.
Yes.
You are not going to see him stand there while Jaylen Warren needs a block. You are going to see him mauling a guy and giving Jaylen Warren the lane. Like what he will give you in just run blocking alone is worth the pick. Peyton Wilson, he doesn't have an ACL. He was a really good linebacker in college. It's a worthy dart throw in the late round 3. I see it kind of like a somewhat similar to like the Nakobe Dean pick for the Eagles a couple years back, where like this guy is very clearly talented. Will he have a long career? No, but at this point, why not? Why not take him and swing? Mason McCormick, pure luxury pick. They're just like, this is another like exciting offensive line prospect. Why the hell not? And then don't know much about Ryan Watts. What I do know about Logan Lee is that I don't know what I would do with him if I drafted him to my team, but I would probably send him on a semester abroad to understudy TJ Watt. Just because of his body type. I would just be like, I don't know what to do with you. Just spend some time with that man and figure it out. So, like, if Logan Lee has a future in the NFL, I think this is where he needed to be. So, like, across the board, I just think that, one, they reinforced their identity. They are going to be a great run team. They grabbed, like, top-notch players at those positions. And so I just don't think they missed. Like, I think not only did they not miss, but they grabbed studs that I don't see a path to them failing. Like I'm very rarely this impressed with the draft.
Yeah, you know Kenny Pickett was sitting there in his house watching this draft, punching air, watching them draft offensive players in the first 3 picks. Like,
that's
why
like
couldn't
theme for a lot of the quarterback castoffs? Like Justin Fields sitting there, Mac Jones sitting there, like, what the hell, Patriots? Like,
well, in Kenny's defense, the Steelers didn't go and draft another quarterback. So, but I can just see Kenny Pickett saying, like, why didn't they invest in me like this? They invested in Russell Wilson. What the heck?
No, this is an investment in not caring who your quarterback is.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's solid picks, back-to-back years of solid picks. Like we were saying, one of the few, like, I wouldn't say few. I think there's a couple of like really solid drafts. But like one of the examples of probably like the better drafts of this board of this year, given how the board fell. And like, I think things got complicated in like after pick 14, because you had all these teams 16 down, like, oh wait, all right, well, offensive players have been pilfered, but like the defensive room is untouched. So what do we do now? Because there's a bunch of people here that we were not expecting to be here. So yeah, with how everything fell, I think the Steelers knocked it out of the park.
So just to give you guys an idea, before I get into like actually talking about the players themselves and what I think they did, the Steelers in order in their draft, they took the number 12 player on my board, and Troy Fatani, who's my third tackle. They took where's he at? They took Zach Frazier, who's my 38th player at 51. They took then where's he at? Let me just pull everything up again. They took Peyton Wilson, and obviously not in order, but they put Peyton Wilson 98th. He was 50th on my board. Now I would have knocked him down a little bit due to injury more than I did. I just didn't know enough about it to make that decision.
The complete lack of an ACL.
Yeah, granted, two guys Steelers have had that didn't have an ACL going into their careers. Hines Ward did not have an ACL, so he played for a long time. And then I was one of our linebacker pass rushers that was also very good. I can't remember his name right now. So they have some experience with that. Too. Yeah. So we'll see. I'm not too worried about it. Mason McCormick was 53rd on my board. Now, granted, I was very high on him because he's one of the most athletic ever testers at the position since 1987. If you go off of RAS, he had like a 9.9 or something like that, 9.99 or something like that. He also just mauled the hell out of people at a lower level of competition. He has center versatility. He called the protections for South Dakota State because they had a younger center. Like he literally has, you could play him in any spot in the interior right now. I think he'd be a pretty good player even as a rookie. They don't have to play him most likely, but he is available if they need him. And then they also took Roman Wilson, who was 62nd on my board at 84. Just an embarrassment of riches in this draft for me, for my own personal taste, right? And that's the thing about it is, and I said, like, if I'm right, awesome. If I'm wrong, then I'm going to feel bad because it's like it feels like you guys stole my board and just took the best players off of it constantly. But in general, like I think you hit on it, Tony. The idea with this draft to me, and I don't know when it's going up, but I did an article for the Steel Curtain about this. I was thinking about it. Omar Khan has a vision for this football team, right? He has a defined plan for what he wants it to look like. And in only 2 drafts that he's been fully in charge of, he has already kind of gotten it almost all the way there in terms of like the pieces required to do it. They still have to make that a reality. You still have to see if that's going to work in the NFL in 2024. But there's no question about what they're trying to do here. They hired Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator. They drafted 3 offensive linemen, 5 in the last 2 years they've drafted. Now, one was a 7th-round pick, but whatever. They still have invested 5 draft picks in the offensive line. They've invested over $40 million in the offensive line via free agency. They brought in 2 quarterbacks who, at their best, you want to run the football and have them throw off play action and not have to do as much. They clearly have an identity that they want to go to, right? Now it's just about executing it because this draft gave you everything you could ever ask for in terms of the ability to do that. Now we'll see if that ends up leading them to a high ceiling or a lot of wins, but they clearly did what they came in to do. They wanted to rebuild the offensive line from the ground up. By this time next year, depending on what they do with Daniels or maybe Simala too, because he's a little bit older than Daniels, they could have a fully fleshed out offensive line of pretty much all players, both under the age of 30 and also highly thought of prospects, right? Like that could be their world in a year. If this works, we would have probably one of the best rushing attacks in the NFL for as long as we want to target that, like, and be that type of team. And it does, like you talked about it, Tony, it allows them to say, yes, do we have a franchise quarterback? Almost assuredly no. We do not care. To steal the line from Tomlin, we do not care, right? Like that's literally what they're like. Khan's being like, oh, okay, I don't have a quarterback situation figured out. Who gives a shit? We're gonna run the ball 50 times a game, and you're gonna have to deal with the defense. Good luck with the defense, by the way. Try to score 30 points on them and win the game. That's pretty much what he's saying. Like, okay, yeah, we might not be able to score 30 points a game, but are you going to score 30 points on our defense most of the time? Probably not. As long as we're mostly healthy. Even when we're not healthy, they don't score 30 points half the time. Like, that's just kind of what they're going for. And while it does limit the ceiling of the team to a certain degree, especially not having a quarterback that I'm confident in at this point, it gives you a floor that is really hard to argue with if you're just trying to maintain like your level of competency. So I think the draft overall was awesome, obviously, especially just based on my own evaluations of players. But I do wonder a little bit, and I kind of touched on it in the article that's going to come out, is the ceiling high enough for this to be the correct approach? I don't think it matters because the offensive line is going to be great, and then you can just figure out quarterback if you have to. Like, eventually, if you can figure out quarterback, oh no, we have a great offensive line for the quarterback. Like, you know, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Right? So it's
like you're doing stuff that doesn't that doesn't like restrict what you can do in the future.
Yes,
like
exactly.
Going back to a few episodes ago, it's probably like a month and a half ago, the way that we've been going. But primarily my fault, by the way.
Yes,
I love that
good.
one.
You're good.
But I said it back when they grabbed Russell Wilson and they grabbed Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. What I love is that they are taking low-cost swings and maintaining flexibility. And the thing I said with that is, if this doesn't work out, you're a team that can go sign Dak Prescott next offseason. Imagine Dak
Steelers fans would
being
be so
dropped
funny with
into
that.
this. Like, this is why I just think they are so well prepared to make that swing. Maybe it isn't Dak Prescott. Maybe the Cowboys figure their shit out. But maybe they're picking at 21 next year. Like, they always kind of pick right in that range.
Between like 18
and they just decide, you know what, we love Carson Beck.
Or whatever.
3 firsts. Like,
whatever.
You don't need to make the swing if like the guy isn't readily available. So I just think that they are prepared to go for that long ball on the quarterback at some point in the next 2 years. Which like they've built a roster worthy of allowing them to take that shot.
That's the thing, is like, because of what they've done with the offensive line and the weapon. Obviously, you need another receiver for sure. I do not want Van Jefferson being the starting outside receiver this year, but you know, it probably will happen, whatever. But with Pickens and Wilson, I think you have 2 legitimate like receivers who can play for a long time for you if you want them to.
Can I interest you in a Chase Claypool?
I'm sorry, Tony.
How about a second round pick?
He's now been on all 3 of our teams.
How about a second round pick?
Here's all I'm saying, right? Is Chase Claypool can be on your team. Just do not throw him the football with the season on the line, essentially, with the division on the line.
Or throw him the ball at all.
Well, yeah, but
I'd say that's the better guidance.
In particular, don't throw
let
the
him
ball
survive camp.
Yeah, that'd be more ideal. But yeah, no offense, Zach. But yeah, do not throw Chase Claypool the football with the division on the line. Don't do that.
Oh, not taken.
Yeah, don't do that. But otherwise, you know, he probably won't do too much damage. I don't think. I don't know.
Like I said, he won't survive camp.
If anyone could make him a viable receiver, it's probably Josh Allen, though. Let's be honest about it. But it's probably not going to happen at this point.
Who have his quarterbacks been? Has it been
Ben Roethlisberger at the age of $1.5 billion? Kenny Pickett, Justin Fields, briefly. Tua, who again, like, why'd you throw
whoever else played while he was in Chicago?
Yeah, which I don't know if anyone. Well, I guess it would have.
He's got a little Allen Robinson in him in that sense.
Yeah, just without
the thing was ability. Allen Robinson did produce with those bad quarterbacks.
Right. He produced like 1.5 years. Produced sort of.
His rookie contract and his first year in Chicago. I feel like he deserves more credit than he gets.
His first year was good. It was after that stuff started to get weird, but that's beside the point.
Also, Allen Robinson is like, when you look at like profile comps, like very similar profile to Keon Coleman coming out of college.
Yes, would not be that shocked if he. I think Robinson had a little bit more like vertical speed, but it wasn't like his game. He wasn't. Like,
I think they both tested in the 4.6s.
I thought he was a 4.5, like a low 4.5 guy, but I might be wrong about that. Definitely wasn't a burner, so I will not like. Still similar either way. I'm not really worried about it. But I did want to. Okay. 4.6 flat. Wow. Okay, that's so pretty similar. I think we need to talk about the Falcons next. Here,
yeah, now's the time.
So
what the heck?
Let's just start with. So we live streamed the first round on the scouting podcast. Dalton and I were on, and he got like a split second before me, and I saw his face just like change. And I was like, what are they like? What could they have done to make Dalton react like this? Because I was like, did they take like Brock Bowers or something, just go full on like Falcons mode, like do that shit? And then I saw Michael Penix's name come across the screen, and I legitimately kind of like thought to myself, I'm like, did anyone think this was like? Is there a person on the planet who predicted this to happen? Because I haven't heard this
he
once.
was in like that marriage was in like 2 of all of the mock drafts submitted
and
to
not at 8, right?
who does them. But
no, I think mock draft at 8. Hey, more power to them if they got that. Good for them.
But somebody like submit like all of the true NFL analysts like Josh Norris won it back in 2021.
Oh, like, there's H. It's like starts with an H or something.
The huddle
like hero
something
score
like that.
Or something like that. Yeah.
So like of all of the ones submitted to that, I think 2 had Michael Penix to the Falcons at 8, which is like
good.
Wow.
All right,
good for them.
Here,
all right, Zach. Go ahead, Zach.
All I will say.
Yeah. I know.
And we're gonna leave a specific piece out of this for you guys to ask me at the end of this little like explanation.
Yeah.
And you can ask me that question, and I will then answer that after. So there is a defense for the idea of drafting Michael Penix at 8. I'm not going to say that Atlanta drafting Michael Penix, but drafting Michael Penix himself at 8. Really, if you look at it, the one thing drawing him back is a horrific injury history. He has 4 season-ending injuries. Outside of that, if that
lack of accuracy.
Well, but I mean, he has a cannon. He has all of the things that normally most NFL scouts would be like, okay, we can work on this. And he would be talked about in the first top 10 picks of an NFL draft, because let's be real, quarterback is one of the highest priority picks. If you have your opportunity to take what you believe to be a franchise quarterback at pick 8 in the draft, you do it. Now, what is your guys' number one question about the Atlanta Falcons drafting Michael Penix Jr.?
Why the fuck did you give Kirk Cousins $100 million like 3 weeks prior?
I don't know, Arthur Blank and Terry Fortnott. Like, what does that mean? Why did you do that? I don't know. My only explanation to that is that there is definitely no confidence that like he keeps them Kirk Cousins keeps them competitive in a weak division, and Arthur Blank, and maybe not Arthur Blank, because based on the conversation they had in the draft room that was aired on live TV, he wanted an explanation right then and right now.
Because he just put $100 million in escrow
exactly
3 weeks ago. And he's like, why the fuck are you doing this to me?
Maybe Terry Fortnott, after all of this, was like, wait. Let me run this tape back. Oh no, what did we do? And he's realized now that Kirk Cousins, again, is going to keep them competitive enough that they are never going to be this high in the draft again for the next couple of years while they have him on the roster. And so they take their swing with Michael Penix. But if that's the case, then, man, you did zero research before you signed Kirk Cousins to your roster for that to be your decision. Like, and then on top of that, for the next, we talked about earlier, for the second round pick to trade up in front of Washington to draft a defensive tackle, and it is not Johnny Newton? Like, what? Like, come on, Falcons, what are you doing?
Luckily, they got Brandon Dorlus a couple rounds later, and like I think that's, if you reshuffled the Braylon Trice, the Rukaroro, and the Brandon Dorlus, and told me it went Dorlus and then just whatever you want between those other 2 guys, I'd be like, yeah, sure, yeah, why not? But like, they also traded up. They passed up on Johnny Newton. They passed up on Braden Fisk. They passed up on a lot of guys that are just objectively better prospects.
A lot.
Zach, are you done with your defense? Because I
mean, my only defense. It's not a defense. Like, I don't think that the Falcons should have taken him because there's way too many extenuating circumstances on top of like having the 8th round pick. I'm just saying, for a lot of other teams, if they had the number 8 pick, taking Michael Penix Jr. with that selection is that there's no issues with that. There really isn't any issues with that. However,
from a logic standpoint,
from a logic standpoint, for it to be the Atlanta Falcons, it makes zero sense, and it should not have happened. And I'm sorry, Atlanta Falcons fans, you might need to take the season off. Like I'm.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's how you came to the like defending the idea of Michael Penix at 8. Because that is like the one piece. So
that piece makes sense. It's just that it's the Falcons that did it. If it was anybody else, well, maybe not anybody else. There's probably a couple other teams where you're like, yo, what are you doing? But like, it's just that, again, quarterback is such a high value pick that if you have the opportunity to take one of the top 10, you have to take your opportunity to take one of the top 10, but not when you pay Kirk Cousins $100 million and sink your cap space.
Yeah. So like, I guess I would push back a little bit against your point. Is like, just from a personal philosophy standpoint, the idea of Michael Penix. So who is Michael Penix, right? Michael Penix is a guy who had to transfer schools because he had 2 seasons, or I think he's up to like 3 total season-ending injuries.
I think it was 3 is what it ended up being, yeah.
So 3 season-ending injuries, 2 knee surgeries, 2 shoulder surgeries, very, very long rap sheet of injuries peppered throughout his career. He turns 24 in 4 days. So he's already one of the top 10 oldest first-round quarterbacks ever drafted. His accuracy... So, like, it's hard to judge his accuracy off of, like, just the raw stats, right? Like, I'm relying on people much smarter than me and their quarterback charting. And, like, when I watched, I was like, he's really just putting it out there, and you have great receivers. Like, watching Michael Penix makes you fall in love with the offensive line and makes you fall in love with the receivers. I never once fell in love with the player. He doesn't give you any mobility. Now, we know that he is kind of fast, but we also know that he did not use that mobility ever. Like, he's a strict pocket passer statue type. He's not going to move the pocket around. He's just going to get the ball out fast. When you don't have an elite offensive line and you don't have elite receivers, he's already had the peak of his surroundings. He's never going to have better surroundings than he has already had, and we only saw 1 true year of greatness out of him. So, like, the overall profile, I have a lot of concerns with. I don't think he throws the middle of the field. I don't think he has pinpoint accuracy. I think that he can generally get it in the guy's area and let his receiver go make a play. But when you add all that up, to me, that's not 8th overall. To me, you're taking that guy top of the 2nd round. I know the NFL likes to push things up, so, like, sure. But then we get to the Kirk Cousins of it all.
Cousins of it all.
They gave Kirk Cousins a 4-year, $180 million contract 4 weeks prior. They tampered to do so, meaning that next year they are going to lose draft picks so that they can get Kirk Cousins in the building. They gave him $100 million of that fully guaranteed, so he's on the roster no matter what, no exit strategy for the next 2 years. He's coming off an Achilles. So the overall profile of that risk they took back in March, I think, is commendable and acceptable because he is the kind of guy with this roster, you can feel a Lions season incoming, right? Like Jared Goff in that excellent Lions roster with great coaching, great culture. I think you could project that to happen to Atlanta this year, and that's what they were shooting for with the Kirk Cousins thing. Now, you have Michael Penix, you have Kirk Cousins. Let's say that you do what Terry Fontenot said was the strategy. We didn't think we'd be picking there again, and we wanted to get the next guy in the building. That next guy is going to be 28 by the time he's playing a snap for you if all goes to plan.
I don't think it's going to be that long. I don't think Cousins has
probably not, but that's not really the point.
All right, well, like 26, 27, is that any better? We're talking like this is Brandon Weeden shit. And so the fact that your contingency plan has a short shelf life is bad. Right? If your contingency plan is, well, yeah, we get 4 years of this super injury prone guy. Like, that's not good. That's not good process. Now, if Kirk Cousins were 2 years into his deal, it makes a bit more sense. But they literally just signed the guy. Kirk Cousins hasn't met his teammates yet. The teammates are now in a position where they are going to be walking into the locker room. Michael Penix is going to be there. Kirk Cousins is still going to be rehabbing. They are going to fall in love with Michael Penix, the same guy that the coach fell in love with. Everybody in the locker room, in the coaching staff, in the fan base is going to obsess over this new guy. Kirk Cousins, de facto starter. He has, like, I think Kirk Cousins should try to force a trade out. Like, Atlanta would have to eat $100 million to facilitate that, but no quarterback has ever been treated so poorly. This is the most egregious, like, mismanagement
we say treated so poorly, but they handed him $100 million.
Right, but like, think about it. He's in the twilight of his career. He was sold on this idea of, you are our guy, we are going to go compete with you, and they just completely pulled the rug out from under him, and there's no way in which this makes sense or works out. And I think that like 90% of the scenarios for the Falcons now are this crashes and burns terribly because of this this sticking point they've introduced into the locker room. These are both good, likable guys. There's no way this gels. There's no way that we're going to be in week 4 talking about Kirk Cousins had an interception and they lost to the Saints or something. And we're going to start to hear the chants for Michael Penix. And there's no way out of that situation for another 2 years. They are up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. This is the most egregious team management decision I've ever seen. Agnostic of how bad the rest of the draft was for them, and like you said, Zach, it's bad. Yeah. This is the single worst draft move I have ever seen. This is indefensible. I have seen all the defenses for it. This is indefensible. This is the ugliest team building strategy I've ever witnessed.
Well, yeah. It's especially indefensible because of who the team is. I guess my question that I would like to know is whose decision was it to bring in Kirk Cousins? And if it was Arthur Smith's decision,
Arthur Smith ain't there.
Arthur
Blank.
Arthur, my bad. Arthur Blank. Arthur Blank's decision. Gotcha. This was Arthur Blank's decision, and Fontenot was not a fan of it. And do you know what this eerily sounds like? The same damn situation that brought Kirk Cousins into the freaking league of when the Washington franchise was like, yeah, we want RG3, and Shanahan was like, yeah, but what about this Cousins guy though? Can I take him a little bit later and then maybe we'll bring him around? And not that it's like, but it just sounds so similar of like a front office head and like ownership, and then like the head coach, whatever team being of like the people playing, and they're like, hey, I don't know how this is going to work. And if that's truly the case, then yes, we have some severe issues with this team building coming up. But if everybody is on board for what is happening in this team, then, oh my gosh, it's even worse. That's what's even more scary. I hope for the Falcons' sake that they're
lost him for a minute there.
And head coach and owner. But if it's not, man, ooh, that's going to be worse.
I'll give my piece now. I did love your kind of just spiel, Tony. I thought that was very well said.
Had a lot off my chest.
Yeah. I'm gonna I think from now on until they like somehow, if they can prove themselves right in the situation, I'm gonna start calling Terry Fontenot Terry Fortnite until he can prove something else to me. Just because I think that's funny. But no, the Penix thing for me at the end of the day is it's a combination of all of the bad stuff, right? Like you said, Tony. It's a overdrafted the player, in my opinion. He was 40th on my board, and I was getting a little bit of a bump, because I was not the injuries are a major concern, but he has been healthy for 2 years mostly. I'll give him a little bit of a pass if the medicals were fine, which I don't know if they were or not, but we'll see. So that's the first thing: is the player is not worth the pick, in my opinion. The second thing is, again, you gave Kirk Cousins $100 million goddamn dollars guaranteed. Okay, $100 million, triple digits guaranteed money. Again, it's Kirk Cousins. That's a
bag chaser extraordinaire.
You're going to give Kirk Cousins some absurd amount of guaranteed dollars, and that's fine. If you don't draft a quarterback at 8, I don't care who. Honestly, the only quarterback in this draft that I would have been okay with them taking in this situation is Caleb Williams, because he's just too good to pass up legitimately. Even Drake May, I could understand because he's young, he could sit for a while. All that, it would at least be okay, I think that there's a scenario where this guy gets on the field at 23, 24 years old and is really great for a long time. Even that would still be why is this the strategy? These guys can play right now if you have a good enough team around them. Why are you paying Kirk Cousins $100 million 3 weeks before the draft? That's ultimately the biggest problem, is they committed to Kirk Cousins. They gave him the money. They said, listen, and I'm sure they pitched this to him we have a good roster. We could have been a playoff team last year if Desmond Ridder was not the quarterback of this team. He's not on this team anymore. We're all about you, right? This is what we're trying to do. They sold him on that. And then literally not even a month later, they're like, well, we also want to make sure, when eventually you're out of here, we have something to go to. And he's like, so you did it a month after I got here, though? That's the You're not like maybe going to take a swing on somebody like in the 20s, which is when you're going to do this is why when you do that is like in the 20s on a talented but maybe flawed player, a la Jordan Love, like that type of thing. That I understood. Like if they would have taken him in the 20s, like if they would have traded up into the 20s and grabbed him, I still have been like, that's weird. But at least I'm like, okay, you didn't spend the 8th overall pick on that. I get that to a degree. The 8th overall pick could have been a trade down situation to get more assets, then still take a defensive player. You could have a Latu or a Verse or whoever, a Turner, who, by the way, there's going to be a game this year where Kirk Cousins leads them down the field, gets a touchdown. They're up by 3 points or 4 points, and they need a big play by the defense, and they're not going to get it because they don't have the edge rush. They're not going to get that big play, and they're going to lose a big game. And everyone's going to be thinking, maybe if they had one of these edge rushers that's probably playing pretty well, whoever it is, because you could have had any of them. You literally had your whole pick of could have been any defensive player. If those players are playing well for other teams and they don't have them because they have Michael Penix on the roster, it's going to be.
Did you see that they tried to trade up they called the Jets when they were on the clock at 8 and said, hey, we're picking at 8, but we want to trade up.
I did see that. Yes.
So they clearly recognized the need for that pass rusher.
They wanted it. Yeah.
And still just chose to
because they were locked in on a
guy
Penix
who had no ability to make them right in the short term.
So something I'm looking at right now is I have the quarterback class up on my screen. Do you know when the next quarterback was that was picked after Bo Nix around?
Pick 150, Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, Rattler.
Saints.
All right, so round 5. I feel like there is a severe lack of round 2 through 4 selections in this
because they got picked in the first round. Your Desmond Ridder tier.
All I'm saying is
overall.
The 2025 quarterback class cannot be that bad. It cannot be that bad.
We'll find out because
we'll find out. But like
that
there's no.
Let me put it this way. I don't think there's going to be 6 in the first 12 picks next year. Let me put it.
There's never been 6 in the first 12 picks ever. I don't think this was. I don't think this was the draft class to do it.
Yeah, I don't think we repeat that.
Well, yeah, of course not. But I maybe just maybe we have overinflated the value of the quarterback position.
Not in the value of the position, but the players that
value in the draft
do it.
And so I will say, as much as I disagree with picking a low ceiling quarterback in the first round, if you're picking a guy 11th overall, 12th overall, they don't have to be that good to still give you value on the rookie contract. That goes to shit when you're already paying a guy $50 million a year. The Falcons now have I think it's somewhere between 8th and 10th highest paid quarterback, and also the 30th highest paid quarterback in the league, and they don't have an off ramp for the next 2.5 years. That's the crazy thing to me. Bo Nix, probably not going to be a good player, but he can very easily return value to the Broncos. Same thing with JJ McCarthy. They don't have to be that good. They just have to be a playable quarterback. Michael Penix has to win a Super Bowl in his first 2 years to make this thing worth it. And when I say his first 2 years, I mean his age 27, 28 seasons, because those are going to be the first years that he's fucking playing.
Yeah.
And Kirk Cousins is still going to have dead money on the books, even in that best case scenario. So they're not getting the rookie contract value on top of all the other trash that we're talking about. It's just, oh my God, it's crazy.
Also, I'm just going to throw this out there before we touch on a couple more drafts before we get going. But drafting Rukaroro in a trade-up situation over Johnny Newton is a fireable offense for me. Legitimately, that's the thing that gets me. Is the rest of the draft was
like
bad.
You said. It's not even that they just selected Rook; it was that they traded up past Washington with Johnny Newton still on the board, and
I think Rook's a good player. I think he's a good run defender. I think he's got some pass rush upside if you can get that out of him. I think he was in the 50s or 60s for me.
To select over what is this presumed to be one of the best defensive
Newton was
players
my
in the draft.
7th player on my board. Now, I grant it's my board. That's high. I know that's too high for him probably. But he was still 7th on my board, and they took a guy that was in the 60s for me. And for a lot of people, by the way, it's not just me saying, I don't like Rook Aurora. It's just he wasn't valued that highly compared to these guys. Like,
and going back to like what I was talking about with the Bills, and like you don't want to draft the top of a tier. I think even if you don't see Johnny Newton the same way that you, Shane, and a lot of other analysts saw him, like if he's in that tier 2, we saw a run of like a crazy amount of D tackles taken in that second round stretch. They kicked off that run by trading up. So you should have just stuck and picked in the middle of that run. Like, is it so bad?
Worst case scenario.
Like, we're not like I'm not talking about the Rams trading a future second for Brady Fisk. I wouldn't do that. Like, that's objectively bad, but I don't think it's as bad as what the Falcons did either.
No, Fisk at least has upside to me. That he was in like the 70s for me on my board, but mostly because I don't think he's good right now.
I think they actually have very similar upsides. It's more so for me like you didn't kick off the run, you just reacted to it. And I give a little bit more grace to reacting to the run than I do kicking it off.
Yeah, when you make that decision, like you have to go for the player that has the best chance of being great. And no offense to Rook, I just don't think that's it. Trice later is fine. I think it's a good edge rush pick. Again, you needed a 1 though. Yeah, you needed a 1. I don't think he's anything better than a low floor 2 at best. I think he has power profile that's fun. I think he's going to be able to handle some tackles really well, but like that's whatever. The rest of again, they didn't do anything. I don't know if anyone they drafted is going to have any significant impact on their ability to win football games next year.
I do think that Brandon Dorlus. I
know you like. I
have a weird affinity for him. I wouldn't have wanted him on the Bills. Full disclosure, because like we've had that type, right? Like Quentin Jefferson, we signed a couple years back, and we got nothing out of him because we didn't really know what we were doing to use him. No,
so you have to know how to use the Brandon Dorlus. Yeah.
And I think Raheem Morris will figure that out.
That is true. I will give you that. Yeah,
I expect good things out of Brandon Dorlus. I expect him to be like kind of like how Kobe Turner was like a sneaky defensive rookie of the year candidate in the later rounds. I don't think Brandon Dorlus is going to win it or get close to it, but I think his name's going to come up in the conversation throughout the season.
I think if he plays enough, he could. He is a tweener guy for me a little bit. He was listed at edge for some people, listed at defensive. I think he's an interior player.
Definitely a tweener. I think he needs to bulk up again because he lost all that weight.
I think it'd be beneficial.
He's got heavy hands and a great first step. Like
the athletic profile fits. Yeah, the athletic profile fits. So, yeah, that pick was fine. But again, I just don't know, like, is he going to be the thing that makes the defense better all of a sudden, like, significantly? I just don't know. It's a tough sell if you're the Falcons right now.
Yeah, and they didn't hit corner at all. And, like, Terry Fontenot addressed that in his in his press conference. He's like, yeah, we really wanted the corner and we didn't get one, but we also didn't want to just reach for a need. It's like, well, let me tell you, buddy, you've already done it. Like, why? If you're willing to reach for the Penix need, why not go do the same thing for the corner need? Like, again, when they traded up with Rook Aurora on the board, I'm pretty sure
Cooper DeJean's on the board.
Cooper DeJean, or if you want a true corner, Kool-Aid McKinstry was right there for the taking. Like, your division rival traded up and got him 5 picks later, 6 picks later.
Speaking of Kool-Aid, Saints had a good draft.
The only thing I have with the Saints, if we want to touch on them real quick since we're in this division, is Fuanga, I think, is a guard long term. That's my only thing.
Oh, no, I love him at right tackle.
See, I think he can be right tackle. I just don't think his ceiling is as high at right tackle than it would be inside. I think his profile as run blocker is devastating interior.
I also think Spencer Rattler is a fantastic pick for them.
I would have taken him over Bo Nix and Michael Penix.
Yes,
nice. and you and Felix the same way, Tony.
All the stuff that's come out, all the pre-draft stuff that's come out about him,
it was a long time ago.
Exactly. Like, look, how many of you are the same person that you were when you were in high school?
Oh, out the womb, I've been the same.
Like the idea that like these teams are going to take it so seriously that it drops him to the 5th round. Now, granted, is he first round, second round, third round talent? Maybe third or fourth round talent.
I think talent-wise, second. Yeah,
second. Yeah, but like. For there to be severe character issues, I think he was at USC, right?
Oklahoma, and then South Carolina.
And then I was thinking Southern California. So, but Oklahoma.
Sorry, I live in Charlotte, so like when I hear USC, people are talking about Columbia. You know,
fair.
Right.
I think what happened at Oklahoma did enough to take him down the pegs that needed to take him down, and then going to South Carolina redid everything that needed to put him back up to be the prospect that he was coming into college. So I think the Saints got a steal with getting Spencer Rattler in the fifth round.
So I just love timeline wise how it aligns with the off ramp for Derek Carr's contract. Like they're committed to him for the next 2 years. Very like not exactly the same situation as the Falcons, but like it's a quarterback who is probably overpaid for his value and has an off ramp in 2 years. You take a guy in the fifth who has the upside to eventually come in and give you that value. You don't take a guy 8th overall.
Yes. And that's where
Rattler is going to start by week 8, in my opinion, because Derek Carr is going to die. Because Trevor Penning will have to play left tackle.
He does need to die for that to happen, just because of how committed they are.
I'm not projecting him to like beat him out. I'm saying like week 8, Derek Carr is like going to snap in half because Trevor Penning is probably going to have to play left tackle, and then they're going to be like, all right, Spencer, you already don't get blocked for in college. Just go out there and make it happen. That guy got pressured like 40% of the time his whole career. That's wild. I was looking at like when I was going through quarterbacks, I was like, how often was he pressured? I'm sorry, what percentage is this? Oh no. How did he survive? So he won't have any problems. They'll be like, Trevor Penning, this is cakewalk. I already know what blocks for me anyway.
So I have an interesting question. Outside of Michael Penix, who we presume is not starting week 1 because Kirk Cousins will be starting week 1.
I certainly hope not. Otherwise, really hit the fan.
Yeah. Do we assume that all other of the 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round are starting week 1?
No, I think Jacoby Brissett gets the full year.
Okay, thank God. That's the one.
I think he should.
He needs to.
He needs to. But I think he should.
I think their plan is for Jacoby to start the season, and I think Jacoby is good enough to hold that down.
There is absolutely
Jacoby is good enough to keep them on their development plan.
There is absolutely zero reason why Jacoby Brissett. There's nothing he has shown to say that he should not start a full season.
I think more importantly, like it's not so much about whether Jacoby can hold the job for long. It's that I think the Patriots need to see what they're working with this year. They need to see are the receivers able to get open? Are they able to make plays?
That's why I want Jacoby playing. Like think about. So, like an adage that I think is all teams should stick to is you don't want to evaluate developing players while you're also evaluating a developing quarterback. You want to surround your rookie quarterback with experience so that you don't have to answer questions about multiple things. You know all the other players are good. You need to evaluate the quarterback. So I love the idea of, they pulled in some, like, I really enjoyed the Patriots draft. I think they did a great job of building the foundation.
Some people didn't like the Polk pick. I think it was a little early, but I like the type of.
I would have taken Jalen Polk at 33 and been happy about it. So give him to me.
No, but I like the profile of the player though for them.
But so Polk and Baker, I think, are just 2 really exciting prospects. Let them have a year with a veteran quarterback. Mm-hmm. Let them work out their kinks so that way next year. You don't have to tell them how to figure, like, they don't have to learn, Drake May is also learning. They're going to be in the role. Same thing with, Caden Wallace. If he has upside at left tackle, I don't personally see it, but, like, let him figure that out with Jacoby Brissett at the helm. Don't give Drake May so many other things to worry about. Like,
there has been so much proven success of letting your young quarterback sit for a year while the rest of the team figures its crap out.
Yeah, more importantly with me, like I could see him getting starts at the end of the year.
They didn't feed Patrick Mahomes to the Wolves.
Yeah, like if they determined that, for example,
there were no Wolves. They were a playoff team.
He had his own kinks to work out to get ready.
But again, like I think with May, like I think I could see him getting starts at the end of the year if the team around Brissett has shown that they're ready to actually allow that to happen. Like if they are playing well within the offense, if they're getting open, if it's not going to be a disaster for him to go out there. Like if the pass protection sucks and the receivers aren't getting open, he shouldn't see the field at all. I think we'd argue you probably shouldn't see the field anyway, just because you don't have to. But if they're out of it and it's like week 18 and it's kind of like the same, completely different situations. But Sam Howell goes out there week 18, right, for the Commanders, right, and it's like, oh, why not? We're out of it. Like I could see that type of thing happening just to give him a little bit. The same thing Mahomes had happen, right, like his rookie year. So I think that could easily happen for him, and I think that's the best thing. Just because again, like. This is a guy that I did have as QB2, and I think last thing we can talk about, by the way, Zach, I'm going to have to get going here in a minute, is Commanders a little bit. I did have him as QB2, especially just from like a profile standpoint, upside standpoint, but he still, I think, could really he could be very valuable for him, especially in the situation he's coming into, to just take a seat, work on his footwork, which is I think his biggest thing he has to work on, and then hopefully hit the ground running in 2025. But Commanders, I want to talk about a little bit too, right? So Daniels, I really think he could become a really good player for them. I'm not saying that I think this pick is going to be disastrous.
And with the idea that they want somebody who can walk in week 1 and start, I understand the decision to take Daniels over May. However, I don't necessarily think that should be the brunt of your decision. That shouldn't be the focus. But whatever.
Not for me, but I understand the thought process that
it's much less of I don't have a problem with the process. I have a problem with the fact that I just don't think he's as good of
he's not nearly anything in the second tier of quarterbacks where it was like, yo, why are these going before
he's objectively fairly valued in the top 5.
It's just again with Daniels, his profile has just so many red flags to me, or at least reddish flags, where it's when he's pressured, it's either run or sack. He's running with the football or he's taking a sack.
Hey, well, they're used to the sack already.
We know that. He's a dynamic runner, but a lighter player who you have to teach him how to protect himself in the open field. As a thrower, his arm is
an elite offensive line and elite wide receiver group.
He did, so you have to factor that in for sure. The arm is good, not great. I think the deep ball is spectacular in terms of placement, accuracy, all that stuff.
The deep ball is beautiful.
Yeah, but again, the ability to push the ball with pace down the field, I think, is not going to be one of his strengths. I think
throwing in the middle of the field.
Yeah, middle of the field is I will say, watching that team, I didn't often see routes developing in that part of the field that often. So I think is that the offense? Is it him not wanting to do that so they don't put those plays in there?
4 years old, I don't want that question.
You're right.
He's played a lot of football. I should know that about him by now.
You're right, for sure. That's the thing that's frustrating is you'd have to talk to coaches.
Not the Matt Miller pro comp being Lamar Jackson.
Of course it is.
Which is objectively terrible.
They could not be different as passers, as runners.
I didn't tell you guys this earlier. The one for Penix was Tua, and I was just like,
oh wow,
that one they just saw the arm that he throws with and stuck with it.
Although
granted, he is kind of the quick trigger in the pocket guy. So
who would have thought that Atlanta would draft 2 left-handed Michaels?
True.
Who would have thought?
That's wild. Not be different players.
I mean, could not be different players, but just coincidence.
No, I think Jaden Daniels actually profiles very fairly to RG3, which is going to invoke fear in a lot of Commanders.
Hey, they don't have to worry.
Saw how good it was until things went bad.
Michael Shanahan is nowhere near this roster. He will not be going back into the game.
Right. So overall, I think the Daniels thing, I think Commanders really did a good job in the draft outside of him, especially if you excuse that as that's just who they wanted, which again you can't really argue with that until we see.
I'm not going to kill a team for taking a QB2 overall.
No, that they No. Johnny Newton, get you out of the Jonathan Allen deal next year. Love that for them. They can let him go on and do whatever. Save $17 million.
Shoot, might even trade him at the deadline.
Hey, whatever. I don't really care how they do it.
Dan Quinn saw all of his run defense problems at the D tackle spot in Dallas and was just never again. Give me
not happen. Yeah, Newton, Mike Samerstill, love that fit. I will say
dog.
Quan Martin I thought was going to be the slot. So is he going to be the actual safety, which is fine. I thought he was a good player, so I think you can do that.
If I had to choose between the two of them on my team, I want Samerstill and a new regime with no ties to Quan Martin. I think he's a culture pick, right? On top of him being an excellent player, elite athlete, very useful player, he's going to increase the dog in your locker room.
Ben Sinnott, really, is it a little early for the second 10 in my opinion in this class? Maybe. But they needed help at that position kind of desperately. They keep doing this. Yeah, they keep doing this thing where it's what about a quarterback that could play tight end? They keep
wait. They got Zach Ertz. They have Zach Ertz right now.
Well, Zach Ertz is how old, Zach?
Hey, as long as he stays healthy, Ertz has been balling for a while. So
it's just. But again, you need a tight end.
This is very firmly the year before he retires.
Yes, that type.
This time next year, I think Zach Ertz is retired. And Ben Sinnott is the starting.
The full-time starter. McCaffrey's a fun player. I think it's a little early for him, but he's
especially
fun.
Over Troy Franklin.
So I will say Troy Franklin, this is something that before we get out of here, I want to mention.
His route running sucks.
Dalton. If Dalton watches this at any point, the scouting stuff with me, he had Franklin as like his receiver 4 or 5, I think it was. Like he loves Troy Franklin.
Connor Rogers both.
Yes, him and Connor Rogers are on the same board there. I had him at 77 on my board, so even I was like, all right, at this point, yeah, I'm down with it. You get Bo Nix and him back together, sure. But even then, I was like, damn, he's fallen to the hundreds. That's funny, kind of. No offense to Troy Franklin, but like.
Yeah, I did not see any difference between him and Xavier Worthy. Like, I just don't understand how there's that.
Worthy has actual more speed, and I think so neither of them are going to contest a catch at all. That's my biggest
on the track. Yes, Worthy had a little bit more speed. On the field, they're within like 0.2 mile an hour of each other.
So right, like, the similar profiles for sure. Yeah, it's like
I think that Franklin was the more productive, better player. So like I both of them have their
Worthy was 47 for me. If that gives you an idea, but that's the thing. Well, also you have to remember, like he's going to the Chiefs, and with that type of like with his skill set, because he's really more of an underneath and middle of the field target in terms of like his target share. Like he's not a ton of deep down the field stuff. Like it's not.
They already have a guy doing that. His name is Rashee Rice, and if
he crashed his car.
Crashed his car is quite a way of glossing over what happened.
His car.
It's understatement of the century.
I mean, that is what happened.
He crashed his car going up very, very fast.
That is definitely what happened, though. You can't tell me.
He's still gonna. It's
sure. There's missing details, but
it's technically correct. Which, as Spoon would tell us, that is the best kind of correct.
That is the best kind of correct. You're right. We will definitely talk a little bit, probably more about some of the other drafts. We went a little bit long on everything, but overall, I thought the draft was pretty good for most teams. The Falcons, obviously. I don't know. Good luck,
Carolina
Falcons fans. I don't.
Didn't grab a starter outside of Xavier Legette.
I said Legette for me was I think 41 or something like that. So it was a little bit of a reach, but I love him. I think he's awesome. It's just, is he going to turn out? It's kind of in that offense, like.
And given what happened in Carolina last year, your second pick cannot be a running back. I am sorry.
That's the thing is like, admittedly, the running back room.
Zach Frazier was left on the board. Like,
yeah. Well, hey, Austin Corbett's playing center. Tony, though, we're good. No, sure. Listen.
I'd rather have Zach Frazier with his broken leg.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Brooks. So my thing is, one, he was like RB3 for me or 2. I think it was RB2. Good player. The running back room was cheeks last year, admittedly. Very bad. Not good. Sanders.
Yeah, it gives you an off-ramp off of Sanders.
Yeah, I get it. It's just, again, like you guys said, probably better uses of the pick. Trey Benson went, 70 to the Cardinals. Love that pick for the Cardinals, by the way. Him and Connor next year, until Connor leaves, is going to be hilarious for defenses to try to figure that shit out. Good luck with that. One play, James Conner is just wiggling through the defense and running people over. And then Trey Benson comes in and is literally twice as fast as him. And defense were like, what the hell are we supposed to do with this? Who's out there right now? Oh shit, we don't even know what to do. So that was cool. Trevin Wallace taken about 100 picks early, probably. Developmental linebacker. Yeah, developmental linebacker. You take those, at 172, not 72, when they literally don't I don't know if you got to watch him at all, Tony. He legitimately doesn't know how to play right now. I don't think he knows what to look for.
Yeah, I've only read stuff about him, but everybody's kind of he's a really good athlete, but you have to teach him football.
Awesome athlete, couldn't tell you what a runner pass play is, I don't think sometimes. That's kind of where we're at with him. Nice. We'll see what happens. Jatavian Sanders is a good pick. I don't know. It's just
I will say about the Jonathan Brooks pick, it did give us, to me, one of the funniest moments of the draft. So the Cowboys, after day one, I think, did a press conference, and Jerry Jones was just musing on how much he loved Jonathan Brooks, talking as though he had already picked him. Yep. And I thought he was going to pick him at 56, and he's like, best interview I've ever had. Everybody knew the ties of the Cowboys doctor doing the ACL surgery. He's just like, Jonathan Brooks, best interview I've ever had. I'm in love with this kid. It sounded like he had already picked him. And then the Panthers traded ahead of him to take Jonathan Brooks because they knew that they needed to trade up if they wanted him, and that is like that is just funny. Like, and then
really
Jerry
funny.
Jones decided to not take a running back and instead sign Zeke. So like that is
the funniest
the
possible
comedy
outcome
of that pick is worth it all for me.
The funniest possible outcome of things. You don't get the running back you want, then you get pissed off, refuse to draft any, go back to Ezekiel Elliott, and now we get the funniest possible outcome for
which
Cowboys.
Is 4-man running back.
Well, the Cowboys did have a big need at center, and at least they were able to fill it with Zeke Elliott.
You're right. Yeah, he could probably hold down
his last snap in a Cowboys uniform was him playing center on that gross.
And now he returns to fill the void. No, but that'll do it for us. I know, Zach, you got to get out of here. We'll be back hopefully next week. I'll talk a little bit more about some stuff we didn't get to. Hopefully there's some news going on about different things. I know we mentioned it briefly. OBJ is now a Dolphin. Very interesting.
$3 million. $3 million.
Hey, up to 8 if he balls out. Nah, that's
the way you should.
I mean, cool. Let him ball out. Let him ball out.
Exactly. I'm just saying. It doesn't matter.
I'll happily pay him $8 million if he does well.
You'll pay him $8 million, Zach. I mean, I know you got a new job. I don't think you have that much.
No, not quite.
All right. But no, we'll see you guys next time. And like I said, we will get into more stuff about the draft probably a little bit, and then anything else we can find NFL news wise. So thank you guys. See you next time.
Peace.